You know what? I wish we could just have Michael Pena here to tell the story of the review that we would give.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have just gone and seen Ant-Man and the Wasp, and we're going to apologize in advance if there's a lot of yawning. It is past midnight. We had to go to a late show. But
it was like, you know, as if we sat through, you know, Lewis's story and hours later emerged from the theater.
Hours later you're going, look, just get the point. So yeah, for those of you who might be tuning in who are not aware, this is Liz.
Hi, everyone.
Liz is my partner and also my co-host on the Punch Like a Girl podcast.
Mm-hmm. Where we reviewed The Wasp.
Where we did. We reviewed not all that long ago the volume 1 of the trade collection of The Unstoppable Wasp, which is a different character from either of the 2 versions of the Wasps that are in this movie.
Yes.
Oh,
and
well.
really had no resemblance to the movie whatsoever, other than like a, you know, Hank Pym was mentioned, and that was
the power set. Anyways, that's a divergence.
Cool wings. Yep.
Oh boy, this is a good sign. We're tangenting already. So we'll try and avoid spoilers for as long as we can, but we are going to get to them eventually. So, but let's start without getting into specifics of plot. General feelings. How did you like it?
I liked it. It was fun. I have a lot of things, a lot of notes. And I felt like there was too much going on. And it was a little convoluted. I feel like they almost had too much power. Like, there was too much they could do. And the science was such mush. Well,
yes. Yeah, just
I mean, it was mushy in the first one. I just watched the first one last night and this morning.
And that was your first time having seen the first time.
This was like oatmeal level mush.
Yeah, but was it that sandy oatmeal from the packets?
That's why I made that reference. Yeah. You just add a little cinnamon.
So my thoughts are not dissimilar from yours. It's not bad. It's fun at times. There are sections that are very good.
Some good fight scenes.
I think the action was really the highlight in this one, but I come away going, boy, I feel like I have a lot of notes, but at the same time, the film is so unambitious. Sounds like more of a slight than I mean it to be, but it's not aiming for anything deep, and I almost feel like a jerk for pointing out these things, but it did feel like I had a lot of things like, well, this and this and this and this and this.
Though that's the thing, it's not aiming for any one message or anything, it feels like, and that's why it does feel a little scattershot. That's what I think.
I think the thing for me is it lacks focus, because the first film comes in, you have, Scott stumbles into this, but the goal is very clear: get this stuff away from Darren Cross. Simple, and everything revolves around that. In this one, we have our heroes and what they're trying to do, and then we basically have 3 sets of complications that keep stumbling into that. One being the villain Ghost, one being the FBI agents.
I feel like now we're kind of getting into spoilers.
Well, I'm talking just sort of the elements at play here. One being the FBI agents, because Scott's still supposed to be under house arrest. And then the other being like this third faction that just is interested in stuff that's going on for their own financial gain.
They want the cool tech without really understanding what it is.
Yeah, but you've got these 3 elements, but they are not actually integral to the goals of the heroes. They're just the obstacles. So it doesn't all knit together. We don't have we don't have heroes going up against villains. We have heroes trying to achieve a goal with villains who just won't leave them alone, and that's just not particularly compelling.
No.
I have a feeling we're going to be mostly nitpicking from here. I don't know about you. I don't regret seeing it.
Okay, so here's another positive note. I will say for the first one, so Paul Rudd is a likable actor, but I tend to like him more in sort of secondary roles or as like sort of an offshoot, not an offshoot love interest, but a love interest like he is in Clueless. I like him in that.
Okay.
I just, as a leading man, I don't think he's bad. I just don't think he has, I don't know what it is.
Didn't you say this was going to be a positive note?
No, but that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
I'm getting to that. Okay, so I really felt that way. I really felt that way in the first movie, and I was like, he's okay, but he's just not quite clicking for me. This, I really liked him a lot better. He was funnier. He seemed to just kind of, the fact that the Wasp could do more.
I was going to say, he's not carrying as much of the movie this time.
He wasn't, but he was better in the role, and I think he felt more comfortable in it and in the goofier parts, but also in the more heartfelt parts. Like, he was great at when he was taking on the persona of the mother.
Oh,
Janet, right?
yeah.
Is
We are firmly into spoilers at this point, folks. Yes, Janet.
Because, sorry, I was like, there's so many different names. Am I remembering from the comics or from that movie? Janet.
Yeah,
okay, so when he takes on her, like, I thought he was great in that, and it was so funny, and just, like, the, like, softer mannerisms, and, like, the taking both their hands, and, like, I thought he did it well without it being too over the top and, like, you know, offensive in a way, you know?
Okay. So sort of for me, like, the major highlights by far were the action scenes.
Yeah.
I was sitting, you heard me, like, laughing out loud and going, like, oh! Like, during those action scenes, the car chase especially was really good.
The car chases were fun.
That was phenomenal. The kitchen fight was good.
The kitchen fight that was probably my favorite.
I like the car chase a little bit better, but the kitchen fight was really good. I feel like there was a lot of creativity put into those bits, but and
I like the bit where he has the, like, trailer truck and he's, like, kind of using his skateboard around.
Yeah. So I think here's ultimately the thing. Like I said, the villains are just kind of in the way because their goal is to get Janet back. Mm-hmm. And then it's just all these things that make that hard to do, but they aren't organic obstacles. It's not like they're on a quest, and in order to complete the quest, they must overcome these things. Like, they're on a very straightforward quest, and things that have nothing to do with this quest just keep interjecting, and then they have to deal with that. I think it says a lot about the fact that I think the conflict that I was most invested in was in worrying about Scott getting caught breaking his house arrest and that he'd have his daughter taken away. I was way more worried about that than anything else going on in this movie. And take that as you will, both in the sense of it meant that was well sold, but also that probably was not the part I was supposed to be most worried about.
But as a father, that makes sense for you.
Yes, but the thing is, the parent stuff didn't connect with me that hard in the first movie.
Oh, okay. I think they did thread that throughout the movie well, with the fact that, you know, like, they established that early on with his, like, foot going through the fence, and, you know, like, the fact that he had it set up for the ant to play, the giant ant to play the drums and take a bath, and, like, you know, basically sort of be his proxy for everything.
Yeah.
And they kept going back to that, and so I think that worked well. I was invested in their actual quest because I'm like, Janet equals Michelle Pfeiffer, so obviously, and it was well worth the payoff because, like, it's great when you first see her and it's Michelle Pfeiffer and she's all, like, you know, fuzzy and, like, oh.
I think effervescent is a good word.
Effervescent, like,
for her in this.
I was invested in that. I love the actress who plays his daughter. She's great. She's funny. Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah, the kid.
The kid,
yeah.
Cassie. And she it's just great in the role. I love their little roller coaster ride and their little maze. Like, I think that relationship was still really well established, and I liked it in the first movie too, and I think they just built upon it here. And I think Paul Rudd has really good chemistry with that actress too.
Yes, yeah, he definitely does.
And just, you know, like the part about the world's greatest dad and stuff, or world's greatest grandma. World's greatest grandma. Sorry, I knew I was gonna mess that up.
Some of the other stuff at play, Ghost. I like the look. The suit was really cool.
It was fun with 3D too.
We saw it in 3D, which normally I don't think either of us is big on 3D, but everything going on with her was very cool in 3D. I think part of the thing, though, and this was part of the issue with her as a villain, aside from the fact that she was very detached from the quest that they were on, is the fact that ultimately whenever she got into a fight with either Ant-Man or the Wasp, it just came down to each of them keeps missing. It's just they keep missing her because their punches go through her. She keeps missing them because they shrink out of the range of her punches. So it's just two people repeatedly failing to hit each other. Is how those fights go.
What did you think of her emotionally as a character? I
like the idea. I don't think they sold it. She kept mentioning how much things hurt, and I feel like they really needed to put an emphasis on the fact that whatever level of pain she endures, it is constant. It is absolutely constant. And, you know, we can accept, and I don't know the reality of this stuff, but we can accept in movies, you know, that Chinese water torture or whatever drives you mad after, what, I don't know, a day or whatever. If she's dealing with this constant pain that she cannot correct and cannot address, I can buy that it pushes her to the limits that she does, but that's sort of me extrapolating from stuff that's in there. So like I said, I like the concept. I don't think they actually sold it very well.
I think I really liked Bill Foster because I think he put another, who is played by Lawrence Fishburne, because the fact that he is helping her and is like, we're gonna help you, but the moment she's like, I'm gonna go after Cassie, he's like, no, I'm done. I will not help you there. And I thought that was great because I was like, technically you're working with the villain, but that is a very like moral choice to make. I
mean, what I liked about their connection was that it was very clear that he felt a kinship to her because, as far as he was concerned, she was another victim of Hank Pym's arrogance. Yeah. Which he feels himself to be as well. And I have found it actually very interesting the way they've sort of thread the needle of Hank Pym as a character, because they have not shied away from the fact that Hank Pym is kind of a dick, but they have it largely of a feature of his history. Not to say that he's not still a little rough around the edges, but without sugarcoating over what the guy is like, they also are not presenting it up front to the audiences as something he's like now, which would frankly make him unlikable. Because Hank Pym, he was destroyed as a character in I think it was the 80s, in a storyline that had a moment where he struck Janet. And in the eyes of comic book readers, Hank Pym has never recovered. He has been, last 30 years, he has forever been Hank Pym wife beater. And the thing was, that wasn't even...
That's fair, he shouldn't recover.
Well, and see, that's the thing, but and this is not me saying that people shouldn't hold that against them, but I'm saying that wasn't even the intention of that moment. The intention of that moment was, you know, he was losing his mind, was what was going on, but it reverberated on a level and damaged the character way more than the writers had ever intended, which is a big part of why Hank Pym is not Ant-Man anymore and hasn't been for a very long time, because they couldn't sell him as a hero again after that. So what I've liked about these movies, this one especially, I think, with characters like Bill and like Ava, who's Ghost, is that you see the impact of his arrogance, of his selfishness, of his self-importance. But it's a feature of his history as opposed to something we have to deal with now, where it would make him be unlikable and unable to be rooted for, which was what happened in the comics.
I think it's a great role for Michael Douglas.
Yes, you want to talk about somebody with some nasty history that we need to not be dealing with right now, because otherwise you won't want to see him. Yes, he very much is Hank Pym. He never plays the straight-laced hero because no one would ever buy him as that.
No. But I always believe he's very intelligent and, you know, thinking 3 steps ahead.
Yeah, no, he's
terrifying. He usually, you know, he plays that, like, greedy corporate, like, corrupt kind of character. He
was always a good casting pick. He was a good casting pick in the previous one. I think he gets a bit more to do this time.
Yeah, definitely. Well, no, I really thought that in the first one, like, you know, when he starts out the first one, like, punching some guy, I'm like, oh.
He has his moments in the first one. He's kind of an exposition machine in the first one.
He kind of has to be.
Well, yes.
When you have an origin story and, like, you have to explain mushy science. Yeah.
So it's funny, like, for as much as I said earlier, like, I had a lot of things that are like, The thing is, though, I feel like I summed it up just saying how ancillary the obstacles were to the main goal of the heroes, and because I feel like pretty much everything I had an issue with just feeds back into that. So now, despite having, like, almost set it up like I was going to have a list of nitpicks, I actually kind of don't now, because they're just variations on making that point again.
I will say that I really thought the, like, guys who were coming to just steal the tech, I really thought in a lot of ways they were unnecessary.
Yeah, I'm not sure they... I don't know what... Well, okay.
I did, like,
I know.
Woo, though, the, like, people who were supposed to be monitoring Scott. He was adorable, and their little, like, back and forth.
He was something else.
Kind of delightfully incompetent.
I was gonna say I don't know why they're there, but then I realized I do know why they're there. They were reverse engineered into the story for the sake of the chase scene, because they needed people that they could crash their cars and crash their motorcycles, and it couldn't be the FBI guys after Scott because they're just doing their job. So they needed a group.
And to be, Ghost and Bill didn't have that many people involved, so.
It doesn't make sense for Ghost and Bill to have henchmen. So I will bet you that entire set of villains was reverse engineered out of a desire to be able to have disposable people to beat up in the action scenes.
They really were. I don't even know what any of their names were.
I don't know how to feel about that now, because it does make them completely and utterly superfluous as far as the story goes, except that the action scenes that you needed them for were the best thing. Because they were the ones that the Wasp was fighting in the kitchen scene. They were the ones that were chasing after them in the chase scene.
They were the cause of the best.
Yeah.
But we're like, why were you really there?
So I can't be
for you, didn't I?
I can't be like, take them out, because then we lose the best action scenes. But I'm like, but it doesn't help the story. Conflict!
Maybe if they had just given them more reason or had them connected to something greater in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, like,
I don't know. You know what? Oh, you know what could have worked? At least it would have made them feel less ancillary. Is maybe if Bill, maybe instead of Hank and Hope getting parts from him, maybe Bill had been trying to get parts from him to help Ava, and that was how he caught on to the lab. Because otherwise it's like, oh, this guy who they've been dealing with just happens to become a problem at the same time that this ghost thing shows up, at the same time as
a lot going on all at once. That having as many obstacles as they did justified having as many people helping them as they did. Like, why they needed Lewis and that team as well, and why you needed both Ant-Man and the Wasp and Hank, you know, working with them and everything.
I mean,
because there's a lot going on and wheel spinning whereas if you're fighting just the one villain, like, you don't need that many people.
You know what? I think there's a fundamental conflict between the villain that they chose and the action scenes that they wanted to do, because they chose a villain who acts alone. But then they have all these action scenes that require a whole bunch of other people.
Yeah.
And so we end up with a story that bends over backwards to accommodate these things, where I just feel like they needed to go back to the drawing board and come up with,
to tie it together.
Yeah, they needed a villain that complemented the action scenes they wanted to do, because like I said, I mean, there are fights between Ant-Man and the Wasp and Ghost, but it's a whole lot of people missing each other.
I don't think I minded those fight scenes as much as you did, but I will agree, like, the kitchen scene was better, and it's better when you can land punches. I feel like the world was still cool, and, like, I especially felt that in the kitchen fight of everything shrinking, but it wasn't as cool as in the first movie, where you're, like, seeing the miniature world for the first time, and you're going, like, I miss going into, like, the ant burrows and stuff like that. That was really fun in the first movie. And like, there was a disconnect from the ants.
I want to
ask, that I think about that, like, you didn't have that emotional feeling. You didn't have Anthony.
You didn't have Anthony.
But you didn't have any ant that he was, like, super connected with, and I kind of missed that as well, now that I'm thinking about it.
Beyond, like, can I just ask, like, a completely superfluous question? How common are the drone ants with the wings? Because it seems like he could basically just jump up and land on one. Like, are they that super common? Because they were specific set of ants, and they introduced that in the first movie. Maybe it's been too long since I've seen the first one. It just seemed like it wasn't even a massive difference between him and the Wasp, the fact that she had wings, because he could just basically jump and call an ant with wings at a moment's notice.
That is the problem, I think, and there was it with the first movie too, is, like, things are really convenient. And it really shows in this movie, and convenient things happen.
Well, actually, this movie does it both. Things are really convenient, or they're really inconvenient. Because
But it's convenient for the plot and, you know, moving it along, or the fight scene, or whatever, that things are very convenient. So it's convenient that it's inconvenient.
The convenience element that bugged the crap out of me was Scott's malfunctioning suit. I'm like, there is no reason for this thing to be like this, except that they wanted...
And I thought they had fixed it, but apparently they hadn't.
Yeah, they wanted him to be at a disadvantage in this fight. They wanted to get, you know, a bit of a funny gag out of him being, well, I guess about yay tall for a hot minute.
When he was in a school. How funny that when he was in a school,
yeah, but this is being accomplished through the sheer bloody coincidence of this new suit doesn't work well. Oh, the Wasp's works fine, but his doesn't work well because it's funnier when it happens to him. And yeah, that did annoy me. That was plot convenience, technical glitching.
To be honest, like, probably Paul Rudd is probably got a lot more comedic acting under his belt than Evangeline Lilly.
I'm not saying he doesn't, but that's
humor,
just
acting. I like her as an actress. Don't get me wrong.
That's just a really cheap way to set up a gag. It's a really lazy way to force comedy.
We are really picking this apart, and I don't think either one of us was, like, really unhappy with it.
No, but I mean, I feel like we gave fair warning that this was probably what was going to happen.
It's a really easy movie to pick apart, though.
It's very fluffy, and I don't know if this analogy makes it. It's very fluffy. I feel like you just keep picking the lint off it until, oh, look, there's just a skeleton left. Oh, whoops. I should have stopped picking.
Aww.
That got weird.
It's about as convoluted as Lewis's story.
Yes, yeah, I feel like I channeled Lewis for just a second there.
So I really liked, even though he really only did it once, I think this was my favorite convoluted story.
Lewis story.
Like a whole segue about jukeboxes in the middle of it.
You put a dime in him, you gotta let him play. Oh man, my grand had a jukebox. It was all Morrissey.
I know, and it was just like, he got on a Segway story within his Segway story, and it was like, oh god, imagine like if they just let him go.
Well, there's part of me that like, they need to bring back the Marvel one-shots, because they used to have these shorts that they would release every now and then. They'd be between 5 and 10 minutes. About. They need to bring back the Marvel one-shots just so we can find out what's the longest that we can stretch a Lewis narrated MCU adventure.
He's so good at them and he talks so fast.
I'm pretty sure you couldn't get away with it for a feature film. I bet you could you could just make it work for like say 12 minutes.
Yeah, I was thinking 15. Yeah, and like I just love them all, you know, lip syncing to his voice. And like him be like, and she said, and he was feeling like this, and like it was so great. Especially his take on the like Scott Hope love story. So
how were you on their romantic connection? Because I was kind of iffy on it.
Felt like it was okay. So at the end of the first, they established they don't hate each other, but they're making out, and then they work as partners and fighting partners, but I just don't feel like they skipped the step between. And I guess sometimes there's like not a step between hating each other and then banging each other.
Yeah, but fair.
But I feel like there should be.
Well, it's not that
if they're going to go from being mad at each other to banging each other again.
They skipped it but alluded to it, because basically they skipped a whole chunk of the courtship between movies, but referred back to it as having happened between the movies. At this point, like I said, I am starting to feel bad for picking on as much as we are, because it's not like it's this big ambitious piece. It's very much what the first one was. It's a palate cleanse after a heavy movie from this thing, and I don't know.
I wish they had at least not tried to do so much with all these different obstacles, so we could feel one of the stories deeper. Either what Ghost was going through emotionally and deepening that connection with Bill, because I felt they did have a good connection.
They did.
Or, you know, really, they did a good job with the Janet and Hank and, like, you know, Hope looking for her mother and that connection. But if they had chosen one of those as an emotional arc to follow through, or emotional story to follow through with the movie, I would have been happier with that.
Yeah. I mean, I think ultimately for me this was a movie that was fine while it lasted, doesn't hold up to much scrutiny at all.
Yeah, it was fun.
I probably don't need to see it again, but
yeah, I would watch the kitchen fight again and Lewis's story again.
Well, I mean, I'd watch a compilation of his stories, definitely.
I bet there is out there like a video that's like all of.
I was gonna say, I think as soon as I stop recording, I'm gonna see if I can find a compilation on YouTube of Lewis stories. Okay, so I think we'll wrap it up. So yeah, Liz, thank you for staying up, another half hour or so to sit down and yammer with me. And thank you folks for watching. What were you...
I want to thank you for being the world's greatest grandma. I really do. Yeah. I should get you a trophy.
That came from the heart.
Yes.
So have you seen Ant-Man and the Wasp? What did you think about it? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. I'm not even going to go through listing all the stuff. You know what the stuff is. There's links for it down below. The Patreon's the big one. That's all I'll say. So until next time, this council is adjourned. Don't snicker at my sign-off.
I will.
Yeah, I know.